Atlanta, July 1992. The summer heat pressed down on the city like a physical weight, the humidity transforming the evening air into something almost tangible as 20,000 souls filed into the Georgia Dome for the first of two sold-out performances on Michael Jackson's Dangerous World Tour. Outside the massive venue, Atlanta simmered with tensions that reflected the nation's broader struggles. Just 3 months after the Los Angeles riots had laid bare America's unresolved racial divisions. Just 14 months after the videotaped beating of Rodney King had forced the country to confront persistent police brutality against black citizens. Inside, anticipation built with almost religious fervor as fans from across racial, economic, and generational divides gathered in shared devotion to the artist who had transformed popular music while navigating his own complex relationship with racial identity. The air crackled with expectation, with the particular electricity that accompanies moments of cultural significance not yet recognized as such. No one in that massive space, not the fans who had waited months for this night, not the crew who had witnessed hundreds of flawless performances, not even Michael himself, could have anticipated how this evening would deviate from carefully orchestrated planning, how a single moment of ugliness would create opportunity for extraordinary courage, how a spontaneous decision would echo through cultural history with impact that transcended mere entertainment. Backstage, in a private dressing room secured by multiple layers of security, Michael Jackson sat perfectly still before a makeup mirror, his slender frame already costumed in one of the military-inspired jackets that had become his performance signature during this tour. At 34, he stood at the absolute peak of his commercial and artistic powers. The Dangerous album dominating global charts, his visual innovations setting standards few could approach, his tours breaking attendance records across continents. Yet those closest to him recognized the increasing isolation that accompanied such unprecedented fame, the growing disconnect between public adoration and private experience, between the icon millions projected their expectations upon and the human being navigating the most extreme version of celebrity ever created. His face revealed nothing of these complexities. Years of living under constant scrutiny had perfected his ability to maintain public composure regardless of inner turmoil. Only his eyes, unusually expressive in contrast to his controlled features, suggested the depth of feeling beneath the professional mask. A gentle knock at the door. 20 minutes, Michael. The voice of his longtime stage manager carried no hint that this night would differ from the dozens of flawless performances already delivered across Europe before the tour reached American shores. Michael acknowledged the time check with a slight nod, though no one was present to receive this response. His attention remained focused inward, gathering the energy required for the transformation from private individual to public phenomenon, from vulnerable human to superhuman performer. The ritual was familiar, practiced through countless performances since childhood. This gathering of self, this conscious crossing from one state of being to another. Yet those who had known him longest might have noticed a subtle difference in his pre-show demeanor during this American leg of the tour. A slight additional weight, an awareness of performing on home soil during a period of national tension, of returning to the South with its complicated racial history that had shaped his own industry and career in ways both obvious and insidious. The Georgia Dome had been transformed by the massive, dangerous tour production. The elaborate stage with its hydraulic lifts and trapdoors, the cutting-edge lighting technology, the enormous video screens ensuring visibility for even the most distant seats. As house lights dimmed for the final time, as the opening notes of Jam filled the cavernous space, the audience's response was seismic, a physical wave of sound that seemed to compress the very air. Michael's entrance, rising from beneath the stage on a hydraulic platform, his silhouette instantly recognizable against dramatic backlighting, triggered response that transcended typical concert enthusiasm, entering territory of collective catharsis. For the opening segments of the performance, everything proceeded according to the meticulously planned production, each song flowing seamlessly into the next, each choreographic sequence executed with the precision that had defined his approach to live performance throughout his career. The first hint that this night might deviate from established pattern came during Black or White, the song whose message of racial harmony had resonated with particular power in the America of 1992. As Michael delivered the lyrics with characteristic intensity, something shifted in his performance energy, a subtle but perceptible increase in emotional commitment, an urgency of delivery that longtime band members noticed immediately. The song had always carried personal significance for an artist who had lived at the complicated intersection of racial identity in American culture, whose own physical transformation had made him lightning rod for conversations about blackness, authenticity, and self-determination. Tonight, that personal investment seemed heightened, as if the national context had intensified the message's importance, as if he sensed particular responsibility to its delivery on this Southern stage. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more untold stories from music history. Moments when entertainment transcended into cultural significance, when artists found courage to address society's deepest wounds through their platforms. These glimpses beyond the familiar narratives remind us of music's power to challenge, to heal, and to create space for difficult but necessary conversations about our shared humanity. It happened during the song's final chorus, a voice from near the stage, loud enough to carry above the music despite the venue's massive scale, clearly amplified by the particular acoustics created by stage design and dome architecture. A racial slur, deliberately projected, cutting through the performance with ugly precision. The word, that word, carrying centuries of hatred, of dehumanization, of violence both physical and psychological. In recordings from that night, the moment is audible, the slur itself, then the shocked gasp from those close enough to hear it clearly, the ripple of confused murmuring that spread outward through sections of the audience as comprehension dawned. On stage, Michael's reaction was immediate and physical, a slight stutter in his movement, a momentary break in vocal delivery as the word registered. For perhaps 2 seconds, professional discipline faltered as genuine human response broke through the performance persona. What happened next would be described differently by various witnesses, interpretation shaped by perspective and position within the massive venue. Some would recall Michael immediately signaling the band to stop. Others would remember several moments of continued performance before the deliberate halt. The video documentation, never officially released but preserved in bootleg recordings, shows the truth. 3 more lines delivered with increasing emotional intensity. Michael's eyes scanning the crowd near the stage with focused determination, then a raised hand that brought musicians and dancers to sudden, synchronized stillness. The music stopped. The elaborate choreography ceased mid-sequence. 20,000 people held collective breath as unprecedented silence descended on a show known for continuous, carefully orchestrated energy. For 13 seconds, Michael stood motionless at center stage, the spotlight creating a perfect circle of illumination around his slender figure. When he finally spoke, his voice carried that characteristic soft quality that always surprised those who knew him only through recordings or distant performances, gentle yet somehow reaching every corner of the massive space. "We're going to take a moment," he said, the simplicity of the statement belying the extraordinary nature of halting a multi-million-dollar production mid-performance. Because some things are more important than following the program. The audience remained in stunned silence, recognition dawning that they were witnessing significant deviation from an artist legendary for perfectionism and precise adherence to rehearsed production. Michael moved to the edge of the stage, closer to the audience than the choreography typically allowed, removing his in-ear monitors with deliberate care. Another signal that this moment would be direct communication rather than performance. "I've heard that word all my life," he continued, his voice gaining strength though never approaching aggressive tone. "That word that's meant to make me less than human, meant to put me in a box, to tell me what I can and cannot be." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the front sections where the slur had originated, not with anger, but with something more complex, a searching quality, an attempt at genuine connection rather than confrontation. I made a choice long ago not to respond to that word with hatred, because hatred is what created it in the first place. The silence in the Georgia Dome had transformed from shocked to reverent. 20,000 people collectively witnessing an artist known for jealously guarded privacy addressing one of society's most painful wounds without the protection of lyric or choreography or rehearsed statement. This was not Michael Jackson, the untouchable superstar, but Michael the human being, responding to dehumanization by asserting his complete humanity in the most public possible forum. "Look around you," he continued, gesturing to the audience that filled every section of the massive venue. "Look at who's sitting next to you, in front of you, behind you. This is America, all colors, all backgrounds, all here together because music doesn't care about those divisions we've created." What happened next will be described by many present as the most powerful moment they had ever witnessed in a concert setting. Michael stepped back slightly, raised both arms in a gesture that encompassed the entire audience, and asked a question that cut to the heart of America's foundational contradiction. What do you choose? Do you choose love or do you choose hate? Do you choose to see the human being in everyone around you, or do you choose to see only the differences? His voice carried not accusation, but genuine inquiry. The question offered not as rhetorical device, but as actual invitation to moral choice. In the weighted silence that followed, 20,000 people confronted not just abstract social issues, but their own personal responsibility for the world they created through daily choices and actions. Then, with timing that seemed almost divinely inspired, Michael nodded to his band director. The opening notes of Man in the Mirror filled the space. The song whose message of personal responsibility for social change had transformed from pop hit to anthem in the years since its release. But tonight, the performance differed from its usual tour presentation. Rather than the full choreography with backing dancers, Michael stood alone at center stage, delivering the lyrics with a raw, emotional authenticity rarely revealed in his meticulously controlled performances. The technical excellence remained, the vocal control, the perfect pitch, but now serving emotional truth rather than spectacular presentation. As he reached the chorus with its call to personal reflection and responsibility, something extraordinary happened throughout the Georgia Dome. It began organically, without prompt or instruction, people reaching for the hands of those next to them, creating human chains that spread through rows and sections, crossing the demographic divisions that had initially sorted the audience into their separate groups. What had begun as conventional concert transformed into something approaching spiritual ceremony. 20,000 people physically manifesting the connection Michael had called them to consider, creating visible repudiation of the hatred expressed in that ugly slur. By the time the song reached its emotional peak, with Michael's voice soaring through the call for each person to make that change, the entire dome had become interconnected web of human contact, physical embodiment of the song's message about individual responsibility for collective transformation. As the final notes sounded, as Michael stood with head bowed at center stage, the audience response transcended typical applause. This wasn't appreciation for entertainment, but acknowledgement of authentic human connection, of genuine courage in addressing social wounds usually left unmentioned in spaces of commercial performance. When Michael finally looked up, when he acknowledged this response with the slight bow that had become his performance signature, close observers noted something rarely seen on his carefully composed features. The sheen of tears quickly blinked away, but undeniably present, evidence of the emotional cost of such public vulnerability. The performance resumed, the carefully choreographed production continuing as planned through its remaining segments. But something fundamental had shifted in the relationship between performer and audience. The technical brilliance remained awe-inspiring, the entertainment value undiminished, but now existed within context of shared human experience, of collective witness to courage that transcended artistic expression to enter territory of moral leadership. Those present would later struggle to explain this shift to those who weren't. How entertainment had briefly transformed into communion. How spectacular production had created space for profound human connection, how planned performance had opened to authentic emotional truth rarely accessible in commercial entertainment contexts. What few in that audience could have anticipated, what even Michael himself might not have fully recognized in that moment, was how this unplanned interaction would resonate beyond its immediate context. In the days that followed, as word spread through Atlanta's communities, the moment became a symbolic touchstone in ongoing conversations about racial reconciliation in a city that had positioned itself as too busy to hate, while still navigating the complex legacy of Southern racial history. Local news coverage, initially focused on the concert's commercial success and technical spectacle, shifted to include discussion of its cultural significance, of a black artist using his platform to address racism directly, while simultaneously creating experience of human connection across social divides. For Michael personally, the Atlanta incident represented evolution in his approach to his platform and public voice. Though he had addressed social issues through his music and humanitarian work for years, he had typically maintained careful separation between artistic expression and direct commentary on controversial social topics. The spontaneous courage demonstrated in Atlanta, the willingness to pause the machinery of commercial entertainment to address human dignity directly, marked new integration of his artistic and activist voices. In concerts that followed, while never specifically referencing the Atlanta incident, he began incorporating moments of more direct communication about social responsibility, about human connection across constructed divides, about the moral choices facing both individuals and society collectively. Perhaps most significantly, the Atlanta moment influenced his decision to make more explicit statements about racial justice in subsequent work, culminating in the History album and tour with their direct confrontations of racism, persecution, and media manipulation. The artist who had sometimes been criticized for perceived distance from racial identity politics, who had navigated the complicated territory of cross-racial appeal in an industry still shaped by America's racial divisions, emerged from the Atlanta experience with renewed commitment to using his unprecedented platform to address society's deepest wounds directly rather than solely through artistic metaphor. In cultural memory, the Atlanta incident has acquired almost mythical status, details sometimes altered in retelling, significance amplified through perspective of subsequent events. But its essential truth remains consistent in accounts from those present. A moment when entertainment transcended to ethical witness, when carefully controlled performance yielded to authentic human response, when an artist known for perfectionism found courage to address imperfection in the society that had simultaneously elevated and isolated him. In the complex legacy of Michael Jackson, a legacy that encompasses both extraordinary artistic innovation and complicated personal narrative, the Atlanta moment stands as testament to the moral courage that sometimes emerges in unexpected circumstances, to the human capacity for transforming ugliness into opportunity for connection and growth. If this video has touched you, if it has reminded you of music's power to address our deepest societal wounds while creating space for healing and connection, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might appreciate this glimpse of authentic courage from an artist often obscured by the very fame his talent created. And remember that behind every iconic performance, every cultural phenomenon, exists a human being navigating the same fundamental moral choices we all face, just on a stage magnified by unprecedented fame, under scrutiny few of us will ever directly experience, with potential impact that continues to resonate through our collective cultural conversation about who we are and who we might become. In a small exhibit at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, among artifacts documenting Black artists' contributions to American culture, visitors sometimes pause longest before a simple display containing what appears to be an ordinary in-ear monitor, the type used by performers to hear themselves during large concerts. The accompanying placard explains its significance. This was the monitor Michael Jackson removed before addressing racial slur during his 1992 Atlanta performance, the physical artifact of moment when entertainment paused to make space for human dignity. Museum curators note that visitors often stand in extended silence before this unassuming object, sensing perhaps that it represents something beyond music history, beyond celebrity culture, a physical connection to moment when artistic platform became vehicle for moral courage, when performance transformed into authentic human witness against hatred, when entertainment transcended its commercial context to participate in the ongoing American conversation about our most fundamental values and choices. In this simple object and the silence surrounding it resides testament to those rare moments when popular culture rises to its highest potential, not just reflecting who we are, but challenging us to become who we might be at our best, individually and collectively.